Hi friends, this is Maven Layemi and you're welcome to my YouTube channel.
Very smart to me, there isn't a lead. It's smart on the purpose. Who I'm meant to be, places I should be. That's nothing compared to. Very smart to me, there isn't a lead. It's smart on the purpose.
Alright, good evening everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope we are all good. So you're welcome to another design workshop session. And tonight we have victory. Let me just say victory mocks. Let me just say victory mocks. Because I may not get the pronunciation of his surname very well. Yeah, so we have one of our great bosses here. A very, very, very good designer. So I don't want to say too much. Yeah, he's going to show you himself when we start. Okay, I don't want to say too much, but let me show us. Let's just see his bio. Yeah, let's see his bio.
Ah, now they've taken our life.
Oh, your light is gone too.
Yeah, it's about to rain heavy.
Yeah, it's raining here already, but let's keep going. All right, you can read with me. Says Victory Mokuolu is a thought leader in UX. I hope I got it right.
I think so.
Okay, thank you. Victory Mokuolu is a thought leader in UX and product design with a proven track record of delivering exceptional user experiences for B2B, SaaS, and consumer products. Is a seasoned mentor and tutor. Victory has impacted over 500 students through numerous bootcamps and workshops in UI UX design, with deep expertise in user research, wireframing, prototyping, and UI development. Victory has driven transformative projects at MDAS Global, Prime Startups, and Motherboard, among others, significantly boosting user engagement and platform usability. Victory's leadership and innovative approach continue to shape the future of design. And our award, right? It didn't include that. So you're welcome, boss. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Everybody, please make welcome Victory Mox. And without wasting our time, before we start feeling cold. Let me pass the mic to Victory.
All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good
I
evening,
hope
boss.
everyone can. Yeah. Okay. So, the interesting thing is they just took our light over here, and I was going to split my screen and share from my monitor, but fortunately,
Oh.
this is Nigeria. All right. Yeah. All right. So, let me just share my screen. Let me take over screen sharing rather. Oh my God. Okay, now just give me minutes. All right, so I just need to let's fix this. All right, guys, just give me a minute. I need to sort this thing out. This
No, no
electricity has
problem.
scattered my
No problem.
my whole my whole algorithm.
Take your time.
Yeah. And all right, can I hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So this rain and
Man, I think the network
please can you just
is
provide,
yeah. Your
yeah,
network is
my
shaking.
screen?
No, we can see your screen here. Let me allow.
Yeah.
I need to stop sharing so you can share. Okay, you can go ahead and share from your end. Okay.
All right. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. So is it visible?
Yep.
All right. Good evening once again, everybody. Um, by way of introduction, let me just introduce myself. Once again, my name is Victory. My surname is Mokuolu, but a lot of people know me as Mox. So when yeah, people call me Mox. Yeah, that's the reason. So Vix. I'm a product designer. I think what or UX, this, money. Yeah, all right. So a little bit about me. I have a background in electrical engineering. I spent how many years of my life now? I spent 5 years of my life doing DYDX. Now I'm using this period of my life. I don't know for how long, but right now I've dumped DYDX to start doing UI UX. If you don't get the joke, then you are not funny like me. Glory to God, they brought back the lights.
We don't want to react to it, sir.
Yeah. Okay, let me see if I can move this back to my where I can see very clearly. All right. Okay, so you can see my screen, right? I just want to be sure that everyone
From
can
my
still
hand,
hear me.
yes. From my hand, yes.
Okay, okay. All right. Um, okay, sorry. Now everything is a bit I prepared well for this, so well mentally, but electricity and internet said no. I'll show you something else. All right. So I studied product design at student grad accelerator, though that's not the only boot camp and accelerator I went through. I also went through Tiva. but this is the one that is most prominent. That once they hear you went to student, they're like, oh wow. Then what I do, I'm a product designer. I'm a no code or a low code web developer, and I'm passionate about music. In fact, I play a few musical instruments myself. I'm a rookie chef, and I love experimenting new recipes. And one more thing about me that I didn't put here so that nobody quotes me is that I'm very lazy, but I work very hard. I don't know why and how, but it just happens. Yeah. All right. Um, so let's talk about my design philosophy. I don't know if everyone can still hear me. So I have three things that guides my design. Number one, everything is a speculation until proven otherwise. Right? I believe that as designers and stakeholders, we have to break, every form of assumptions. Once you are given projects, tasks and stuff, there's always assumptions, but until you prove them, until you truly understand your users as a designer, that is when you are actually solving problems. So I believe that everything is just a speculation until you prove it. Then my second principle is that you have to discover solutions and not to know them. A lot of designers fall into the trap of believing that they're expected to know the solution to every problem, but your job and your responsibility is not to know those solutions, but to actually discover them. So you are expected to find solutions, walk through the process in discovering solutions. We're not expected to just know them. And my final principle is make it clean. I am a very strong believer of minimalism. I do not like really busy, disturbing designs. I believe in clean design. So those are my design philosophies. So let's dig deep into today. So I'll be talking about five different things if there'll be time, and also like practically talking about them. So number one, let's talk about frames and form factors, right? Um, and one of the things I will be, because I believe that most people on this call are already designers. This is a purposeful designers community. So I believe that everybody is a designer and has some understanding of design, and some of us already know how to use Figma. So I'll just walk through and just create a new design file just for the purpose of this workshop. Right. Okay. So um let me bring this here so that I can switch easily. So let's talk about frames and talk about form factors. So what's a form factor, first of all? A form factor is what defines the device and the mode from which users interact with your products. I don't know if that makes any sense, if there's any sort of technical gibberish. But basically, your form factor refers to mobile, laptop, um, desktop, smartwatch, you know. So whatever medium through which users get to interact with any digital product is referred to as a form factor. So, and that's why we have different form factors. And by default in Figma, one of the basic form factor, like by in Figma, for you to have access to, or a form factor is defined by a frame, right? When you open your Figma file, just like we have here, you have this empty canvas where you can begin to fill it with frames and screens, right? Product designers refer to the different, um, they refer to all the different stages of every product interaction as screens. So let's say I'm designing a product. The splash screen is a screen. Inputs like the login page is a different screen. We call it the login screen. So each of all those different pages, which defines every step of interaction for users, is referred to as screens. And you can decide the form factor of your screen through a frame. So if you come to your Figma file at this top left, you see this icon. Let me increase the size of this so that it becomes more legible. I don't know, can everybody see my screen very clearly? I just want to be sure. We have about 14 participants here. Please, can someone just unmute and let me know if I'm still being heard loud and clear?
Yes, you're
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So let's continue. So I'll define my form factor by clicking on a frame. On the right hand panel, you see a couple of frames that have been predefined already by Figma. We have phone. Phone is a form factor. Tablet is a different form factor. Desktop is another form factor. then presentation, watch, paper. These are all different form factors, right? But the ones that users get to interact with the most is phone, tablet, desktop, watch. So these are the major form factors, so which refers to your wearables and your digital interfaces and digital devices rather. All right, and so let's say we are working on a mobile app, right? Let's say we're working on a mobile app. So because I'm working for mobile, I have to select from the phone form factors. So I have different um, s- um, factor sizes, different form sizes. So we have for the iPhone 14 or 15 Pro Max, which is 430 by 932 pixels, which has been predefined by Figma. So I don't need to master all these different sizes in my head. In fact, since I've been designing, I've never known the sizes of. The only thing I know the size of is 1080 by 1920, which is that of your standard YouTube screen size or movie size. But I don't know the size of any other screen. So let's say because I'm also racist like Figma that has refused to give us more Android models. All we have is Android small and large. So let's just pick the iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. Now, one of the things I want to address in this class is a mistake a lot of designers make, and which ends up ruining their designs. Whenever you are designing with frames, you need to make sure that everything that is going into that screen remains in the frame. So let's take, for example, I want to create a login page, right? And the first thing I'll be expected is there's going to be a text, probably saying login to your accounts, right? Let me, there's a typo here, login to your accounts. Let me center align it and let me give the very interesting font, though people hardly use this in UI designs, but let me just go back to defaults and center this and probably make it semi-bold. Let me just call it login, right? So let's say I put this login screen here, and it's expected that on the login screen, there's going to be a field for your inputs and a field for your button. So let's say I decide to use this sort of inputs. Let me give it a height of 52 just because I want to make it big. Let me see this center line. Okay. I'll give it a border radius. Let me give it a border radius of maybe 8, which is fair enough. And also give it a stroke. Let me not pick for my pre-selected strokes. I'll just make it lighter, right? And I can call this username, right? And I'll just put this here. Use the size to probably 14 and change it to regular, right? So I have this here. Let me take it away from here. So we have this, and this is just a sample, and I have my password. Let's say I want to include an image there. Most of the time we want to like pick and drop images from probably, or let me see if I can find any images that can be used here. Let me bring this here. Um, okay, you won't be able to see because I'm sharing just my Figma screen, so you'll be able to see what I'm sharing. But let me just pick something from you. Just give me a minute, guys.
Hi,
Okay, so
Victory.
let's say I want,
Hi, Victory.
yeah,
Did you get my
yeah, can,
message? I sent you a message, please.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just check.
Uh, all right, okay, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's say I want to drop a logo on this. So let me just pick and drop a logo in this design, right? So this logo is actually I don't like it, but it has a background. So let's say I want to drop this logo on my design, right? And let me take it out of here and drop it here. A mistake a lot of designers make is that for a logo like this, for an image like this, they just align it, but this image is not sitting within the frame. I don't know if you are getting what I'm saying. So this is it. It looks like it's in the frame. I can reduce the size a bit, so it looks like it's part of the right. So okay, you know what? Okay, let me just leave it that way and take out the background actually. So now this is the logo. Now, one thing that Figma has done is that for you to be able to know if your logo, I mean, if an object is sitting within your frame, is to see if you can see the name of the object, the object you've selected. So now, for example, if I click on this box here, I cannot see the name because it is sitting within the frame. So if you can see that this frame on your left-hand panel is selected and every other thing, but this logo here is not sitting within the frame. And the way I know that is because when I select the item, I can see the object's name, just the same way you can see. So it's more like a standalone frame. And now the danger of doing this when you are dealing with frames is that when it's time for you to probably move your screens or make any adjustment to your design, right, that object doesn't move. So for example, if I decide that I want to move this screen, or I want to even duplicate it, I hit Command D and I duplicate, this logo doesn't follow. So one thing you need to be very careful of when you are designing is that you want to make sure your objects are sitting within the frame. So one way for you to continue, for you to be able to monitor is to look at your left-hand side. Always look at your frames, I mean your layers, to know if an object is sitting within the frame of your layer, right? So let me just center lines, and so we have this already. So that's pretty much that about frames. And I'll just teach you a little trick on something I do, because most of the time we do a lot of things with Figma that goes beyond designing digital interfaces. Sometimes um we also get to design pitch decks and other things that are not necessarily interface designs. So when working with frames, one of the things that can really help your work, is, so I just want to show you guys a little trick. I'm going to duplicate this screen and put it here. So you must have seen, people designing stuff like carousel, and an image is like sitting on one page and it continues around that page. The way to achieve that in Figma is to do something like this. So let's say I take a picture that I want to drop within. Okay, let me look for something I can. You know what? I'm looking for something I can pick very easily that wouldn't maybe something like it's a mock-up. Just give me a minute, guys. Let me see if I can find a mock-up that we can use. Okay, so let me do this. Let me just pick from a different screen. Okay, can't find anything here, so I'll just come here and just give me a minute. Let me just pick a recent mockup I did. Okay, now my network is in the mode. Okay, it's loading now. Let me see, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. So I want to pick an image from here and just show you how you can create continuity in your frames, or some of the beauty and magic of Figma frames. So this usually applies when you're designing. For example, after you finish building your app and you want to drop it on Play Store, and you need to create like, or Apple App Store, and you want to create the banner that image is going to work with. Most of the time it's usually the work of the brand designer. But if you work in a small startup where you're a design team of one, you'll be expected to also create the designs that is going to accompany your app going into the store. So let's say I want to paste that image right? So let me first drop it here. So we have this beautiful mock-up here, right? And one of the things I want to cause it to flow. One thing I will do is this. So let's say I drop it inside of this frame. I'm going to do this. Or you know what? Let me undo all I've done and copy it. I don't know why it's not copying properly. I think it's a network thingy. But let me just copy it as an image. And let me just copy this one instead as an image. Good. So I've copied it as a PNG. I can discard this one. And let me just drop it in here and do this. So we have this image here, right? And I want it to spread across the both screens. So I'm going to do something like this, right? And if you look at your left-hand panel, you see the second frame and the first frame. How many minutes are we going to discover? Wow, 27 minutes, gosh, and I'm still covering one topic. So what I'll just do is take this, duplicate it, hold my Alt or Option if you are using a Mac. You use Mac Option if you are using Windows Alt. You hold Option and drag it into the next frame. So what we now have is something like this. So we've easily created continuity in the design. So this is one of the little tricks or many tricks that you can use to this is one of the magics of frames. So that's enough about frames. Let's talk about the next thing I want to talk about. Um, the next thing is let's talk about grid system. All right. So a grid is basically or let me talk about why people use grids. One of the reasons why people use grids is because it helps them to ensure consistency, and digital interfaces are built upon a grid system. So for a web form factor, it's built on a 12-point grid system. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense to anybody, but it's built on a 12-point grid system. And if you are doing for mobiles usually fall between 6 points or 4-point grid system, right? And one of the reasons why we use grid is to ensure that we have consistent alignments. So I see a couple of designers, I see a lot of designers do things like this. They use rulers to create boundaries in their design. So let's say I want to ensure that everything on my design is aligned to the left and to the right. Like I want to define, a bounding point. So let's take for this first frame. They would usually do something like this: drag from the left and put it here, and drag from the left and put it here also. So then this helps sort of create a boundary. So whenever they are creating anything new, let me hide this and this. Whenever they are creating anything new, possibly they want to put an image, they will do something like this. They make sure it's aligning to this, right? While this is nice, this is not the most efficient way and it's not scalable. I don't know if you can replicate. Okay, you can actually replicate it, but this is not like the most efficient way to do this, and it doesn't allow you to be able to consistently reuse it across multiple screens. So a better way to do this is to use something called grid. I know a couple of us, probably some of us already use grid and understand grid system. So to create a grid, I'll come to my right-hand panel and click on layout grid. There's a difference between auto layouts and layout grid, so you need to know that so that you don't make the mistake. So I'll click on this plus button. It automatically creates this grid. So you will see lines on the screen. So now it's the next thing for me to do is to actually begin to define what the grid should look like. And I'll start with this. I'll change this from the grid to column, right? By default, it gives me 5 columns, but because this is mobile, it's either I'm doing 6 or I'm doing 5, or I'm doing 4. So I'll reduce this to 4-column grid. Then the next thing I want to do is to add a margin. The margin is the space between the extreme left end and the right end of your grid system. So the margin is the space between the edge of your screen and the starting point and the ending point of your grid. So let's say for mobile, because it's mobile, most mobile usually have between 12 to 16 points margin. So I'll just give it 12. as the margin, or let me be generous and give it 16. So you can see the grid shifts automatically. So I have, a 16 points, a 16 pixels, margin from the left. Or let's say you are designing something really cool or really different. I can increase this to like 32, right? And I have a 32 points margin. Then the gutter is the space between each of the columns, right? The gutter is what represent the space between each column. So now by doing this, right, I can just easily begin to take my stuff and push them to the boundaries. So this way, it also be able to define things. So for example, now this is built on a 4 points grid system. I can consistently create boxes. Let's say I'm now designing like a four four field authentication. Maybe you want to do um your OTP. Let's say I'm designing an OTP, or let me even just delete this and just duplicate this. Let's say I want to design an OTP now. It's easier for me to ensure that there's consistent size across board by simply doing this because I'm using a grid system. I don't know if this makes any sense. So for you to hide your grid, um, on Mac, it's Control G, Control G on Mac. On Windows, I think so. The reason why we hide the grid. So one of the things you can do is to hide your grid from here, which hides the grid. But now imagine a case where you have like so many grid systems and you want to hide them. You have to start going one by one to hide everything, which is not efficient. So, which is why we have the shortcut Control G to hide all the grids automatically and show them. And I think for Windows, oh God, and I checked it right before this class. I think, yeah, so for Windows is Control Shift 4 for Windows for you to hide your grid, while on Mac is um Control G to hide your grid. So that's that about grid systems. I hope we are making sense, right? So I've talked about why we use grids and how to use grids. So in addition, let's say I'm designing for a web form factor. Let's say I'm designing for a desktop. I just pick the wireframe. If I want to create a grid system, I will just come and click layout grid, change it from grid to columns, and say I want to because it's for web usually between 8 or 12. That's the standard. Then I can give it a margin of let's say 120, depending on how you want your design to scale and I want it to spread. Then I can give the gutter maybe 24 or 32, which is the space between each of the elements here. So by doing this, it helps me to be able to like, consistently, use sizes. Oh, and by the time you are developing and by the time you're building by the time developers are picking it, it's easier for them to be able to, assign points. So for example, if I design something like this and I have this developer while the developer can assign this to 4 points of the grid system, and this one is taking the remaining 8 points of the grid system. So it allows for you to be able to design consistently and accurately when you're designing. So that's that about grid. We'll take questions if there is any after I'm done talking about this. We are running out of time. So the next thing I'll talk about is sections. Sections helps you to put order and organization into your designs, right? I will show us an example of how sections is used, right? Um, let me see if I have one here. Okay, so let me quickly open a design file that allows for the use of sections, and I'm going to open one more where sections was used. All right. So I don't know if you've ever seen design files that looks very scattered, that you see all sort of. Let me see if I can find an example. I think I should have something like that somewhere. Uh, I should have something like that somewhere. Should have something like that somewhere. Just a minute, guys. I'm trying to like show you examples of how okay. God, I'm a very organized person. I'm surprised. Let me look for somewhere where I have like very scattered designs. Okay, let me come here. So now it's very difficult for me to even find disorganized designs because I'm so organized in my designing that it's difficult for me to find designs that is really scattered. Okay, I think this is okay, this is not scattered either. I don't know, does anybody understand what I'm talking about? Who has ever seen a design file where everything is just everywhere? Like you see multiple screens, everything is just, flying random places here and there. You know, I should have something like that here. Doubt if it's yeah. Okay, now take a look at this. We have designs flying left and right here, but this is still not it. Okay, this is not it either. Okay, I think this one is after no, it's not either. My God. Okay, so we have screens like this where we have designs flying everywhere, left and right. There is no, there's no question, there is no control of the design. I don't know why this page is taking forever to load. So but what I'm trying to prove is the fact that there's something called sections in your designs. And one of the things section does, it helps you to put control into your design. So take a look at this screen I have here. This is quite classified, but I believe I still have a bit of liberty to share this because we are coming out big soon. Now, one of the things, so if you look at, I have two different, sections here. This is dark mode, this is light mode, or yeah, so we have light mode and we have dark mode. Every design that goes into light mode here has been grouped into a section, which helps to put control and organization into the design. And everything relating to light mode has been put into this section. Right. So sections are a way to be able to group and put class into your designs. Right. So, for example, if you are working in a startup and you have like different flows and different, use cases. So, for example, you're working on a product where you have like 87 screens for sign up, and that's when 65 screens for creating an account, depending on how complex you want the user experience to be. You know, you just see a lot of screens. I don't know why this page is not opening up. This is very strange. Okay, well, maybe God doesn't want to open it up because of NDA. All right, so it just helps to put control. So, for example, if I'm working on a product, I can create a section and say this section is going to contain everything that has to do with, login. I really need to show you because I have there's a real life example of how I was able to use. Let me open this. We are running out of time. We have just a few minutes left, barely 20 minutes left for this. All right, so while that is loading, another benefit of screens is that of using sections in your design is that sections, if you are using maybe a paid or education account, you have access to certain features like multiple modes. So for example, I use a professional account, a paid account, and so therefore I have access to, like, I can create multiple modes of designs in your variables. I won't be talking much. I won't be able to talk about this tonight. But if you can see from here, I've defined a couple of variables for different. So there's a dark mode and a light mode, which shows all the different colors and which color goes for which mode. And the same goes for my surfaces, for text. This is the color that goes to dark mode and this color that goes to light mode. Now, for this section, I've already set it here from the right. You see something called tokens. I've already set everything that is within this section to be in light mode. So if I come here and I switch to dark mode, now see the magic that happens. Everything automatically changes to dark mode because I set that section to dark mode. Now, if I create light mode, everything here goes to light mode. Now, let's say, for example, I create another screen here. Let's say I create a screen here that's let's say I put a new screen here, and the screen, let me put it inside of here, right? And I'll give it a background and give it surface. This is a dark colored background, and let's say welcome to purposeful designers, right? I would just amp this up a little and do this like a really bold font. Let me just, like, this is just an example. Then I also select the pre-selected style. So I'll select this style and just give it a primary white text. Now I have it in this, under this section, the dark mode section. The moment I copy it, right, and I drag this into this section, it automatically changes to white. In fact, if I pick this one, this dark section, and I bring it into this other section, the color automatically changes because I've already predefined the modes, and I predefined the colors. So this is one of the benefits of using sections in your design. And I think this page should finally be opened now. For weird reasons, this page has refused to open. Okay, I think it's responding now. It's a very heavy page because I have like thousands of screens on this page. And I will count to 10, and if it doesn't open, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we'll leave it to be on its own. I do not have the bandwidth of time to wait for it to load up. But I'll have loved to like show you how you can group your different flows into different sections. But I don't know, but you get the gist already. Sections allow you to organize your workspace. Right. So the next thing I'll be talking about is groups and the magic of auto layouts. A couple of us already know what auto layout does, and how to use auto layouts. And I see a couple of people using groups also, when they should use auto layouts. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of walkthrough on how to efficiently use auto layouts and all the different. Sorry, I have a call coming in. I need to decline this call. I mean, just put my phone in do not disturb. All right, sorry. Okay, so I'll just talk about the magic of auto layout and how different auto layouts work. So let's say I'm working on this screen, and one of the things I want to do is I'll just talk. Okay, so let's do something here. Um, I'll just pick something from some of these screens that have been done here already. So we have something like this, right? So I'll just pick this and this. Or let me just pick this entire screen and rework it here. All right. So um, I'm going to break down what has been done here, more like replicate this design here. So first of all, let me start by taking out everything on this screen. Turn on my grid because I like to work with grid systems, right? And I'll also turn all these off. So this is going to like practically show you how auto layout works. We have like 15 minutes left for this call, but I'll try to be as fast as possible. So for this page, you see this the balance screen. So one thing I'll do is start with my text and put the balance there. So let me put in my currency first of all. That's Naira, and type since you answer me now. Okay, you know what? I'll do this 300,000, right? And also add the currency to the front so that it looks good. So what's the size of this? This 28, and right. No, I can't copy the because that's a different design system, but this should be like 32, right? And I'll give it bold, just semi-bold, right? And maybe reduce this like -4, right? Which font is used there? Let me I want to clone it like exactly the way I designed it, open source sans. So we have this. Then I also have another text there for wallet balance, right? I want to align all of this. So I don't want to put center text. So let's make this this should be like 16 and make this regular, right? So one of the things I'll do here is now the first thing I want to do is to auto layout these two, right? By creating an auto layout, I'm looking for a very simple layman term to use to define or describe auto layouts. But auto layouts just allows me to like create groups of objects and be able to like define them properly. So for example, if I did this, let me ungroup it, and I use the group, right? Control G. So if you look at your left panel, we see a group and this is a frame. With this group, I can, okay, wow, this is great. Figma now does this. This is interesting. So, but before we didn't have stuff like this, and groups were not very efficient in like, doing stuff. But the best way to do things like this, okay, yeah, let me just recap. Now, on the right hand side, you really cannot begin to define things and put boundaries and all that. So, which is where auto layout comes to the rescue. Auto layout allows you to like specify the space you want to be between each element. I reduce this to 8, right? And I can now create another auto layout on it because I'm thinking in systems, the same way a developer is going to pick this. And what's the height of this? So this has 32 and 24. So I have on my left and right, the padding is 24 pixels and the padding of 32 on top and bottom. Then I would stretch this to fill the entire length. Now, let me give this a border radius of 16 and give a background color of this green. And I'll change this text to white like this. I'm just going to pick the colors because I don't have access to the design system, to the color system here. All right, so we have this already. Now, one of the things I can do is, one of the things that already automatically happens is that this frame is set to fill. So if I look at this frame, if I look at this particular frame, which is an auto layout frame, my frame is set to fixed. The width is fixed and the vertical resizing is hog. Now, how does this work? If I set this to, the moment I adjust the size, it becomes fixed. So no matter the amount of sizes I put, it doesn't affect the, it doesn't scale. All right, so let me take this back to 32. And when I change this back to org, it's automatically orging contents. So if I increase the padding top and bottom, it automatically resizes itself, right? And the moment I change the spacing in between this, it also automatically resizes itself. So that's the beauty of auto layouts. Now, let me also tell you some other things that, so, and the auto layouts can either flex from top to bottom. The direction can be vertical or it can be horizontal. So for example, this auto layout is set to a vertical. This auto layout is vertically set. If I duplicate this, it automatically comes here and it's set to it automatically duplicates and the whole thing resizes, which is the beauty of auto layouts. Like I said, I can increase the spacing between them, so like 24, and we have this. Now I want you to notice something, that when I click on a frame inside, the frame takes a property of fill. So we have 3 different properties that you can set your auto layouts. We have fill content, we have org content, and we have fixed width. Now, if I set it to fill content means it's automatically going to take the length, the entire length or height of the parent field, at least to the limit of the padding, because we've already set the padding of 32 around it. So if I click here, I see it as a padding of 24 on the left and right, and 32 at the top and bottom, and a spacing of 24. So this is going to automatically fill every length in between. If I change it from fill to org content, it automatically orgs. If you can see the box now, it orgs the content that is here. And if I set it to fixed, It's going to take whatever length I set it to. So now how does this work? Let's say I'm having multiple zeros here, right? It continues to, you know, because I've set it to because I've set it to because I've set this to fixed. Now, the moment I change this to fill content, it automatically flex. If I change it to hog content, you can see it fixes itself automatically. Then if I change this back to fill, it's back here. Now, inside of this frame, if you notice on the left hand side on your layers panel, you see that there are two elements within this auto layout frame. Now, each of these elements are also taking a property of fill. The moment I change it to org content, it automatically goes out of the border and the frame, and you can clip the contents of your frame so that you don't get to see those things. So this is just basically talking about the different properties you can give to your auto layouts, right? I believe I'll be having this kind of account balance on someday. Now, I talked about different directions. You can flex it vertically or horizontally. If I flex it horizontally, they automatically take this length. But now the mistake I made was that I didn't set, okay, this is set to fixed, and each of these is set to fill, right? Now, the moment I set this, you can see it's scaling out. So I need to set it back to fixed and set each of them to fill content. The moment it's filling, you can see it's automatically resizing. So this is one of the tricks you can do to make sure you have like a sort of responsive design. So if I do this, if I reduce the width here, it automatically adjusts itself, it makes your design quite responsive. So this is the magic of auto layouts. Let me take this out and let everything remain the way it is. Now, I'll talk about groups. There is a very interesting way we can use groups, right? It's just one trick that I recently stumbled on. So for example, if I take two different items, so for example, let's take this logo that was designed here and I paste it here, right? So we have this logo here. It's already a frame, so but we already have like different items. Or okay, yeah, so this doesn't just apply to groups alone. It also applies to, or it applies to frames majorly. Sorry, that was an error for my part. Yeah, I was going to talk about one little trick you can do to your designs that will make your designs go from here to, and you cannot see man gesticulating. Now I have this frame and it has these elements inside, right? The moment by default, most frames are usually, you know, are usually like this. So if I decide to increase the frame size, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. If I'm increasing the frame size, it doesn't affect the elements inside the frame. Are you with me? Please stay with me. One of the things I can do to make sure that this element inside scales with my, or let's put it this way. Let me take this out. Now take a look at this frame. Let me delete all this, right? Now take a look at this frame. This frame within this frame, this bigger frame, is set to the constraints. So if you look on your right hand, on the right section, you see constraints. The constraint is set to left, and the top is set to left and top. So which means if I decide to adjust the size of this page, it doesn't have anything, it doesn't have any effect. But the moment I do something like this, or okay, it's still not making any sense. But now the moment I start doing, if I want to reduce the height and I'm reducing it from the top, it's following it. Do you understand? So let's say I take this frame and I bring it down, maybe somewhere, maybe I'm designing like a footer, and I set the constraint from top to bottom, right? The moment I scale this, it automatically follows the frame from the bottom. If I set it to top, right, it automatically moves It's not moving. The only time you see it move is when I scale it from the top here. I know if what I'm saying makes any sense. So that's number one thing you should know about frames and constraints. Constraint is very important in your design. You need to understand constraint and how constraint works. Now, most times you see people just align something to the center. So they switch this to the center, and I also switch this to the center, right? Let's say I put this in the center. The moment I adjust the width or height of this thing, it follows it. It doesn't leave that center because I've set the constraint to be in the center of the page. If I do this, it remains in the center, and I increase the size, it still takes that center position. So because I've set the constraint to center, there's now another interesting dimension called scale, right? Or let's even say left and right. If I set my constraint to left and right, now watch the magic that happens. This element automatically follows the size of the frame because I've set it to left and right. So people ask questions about how can I design responsive designs? This is how you can achieve responsiveness. So this is probably the size of a desktop it has scaled, and the moment it comes down to the size of a mobile, it takes the size. So you use left and right constraints to be able to achieve that. If I set a top and bottom constraint, it means that whenever I increase the size of this, it automatically increases the size. Can you see that? So that's with top and bottom. Now there's another interesting one also called scale. Scale works just similar to left and right and top and bottom. The only the only difference is if I were going to use this as an example, right? So let me give this a background. Let me give this a fill color. Now for this particular small object here, I've set the frame, the constraints by default is set to left. I clicked enter to select everything within, so it's top and left. The moment I adjust this, it doesn't have any effect. Now if I set this to left and right, top and bottom, now watch what happens. Can you see? It distorts it skews everything I've done. Now this is what makes the difference between left and right and scale. Now, the moment I change this from left and but you saw when I was working with this frame here, when I set this to left and right, top and bottom, let me change it left and right. The moment I change to left and right, it was automatically resizing. But this doesn't work for certain elements, depends on the use case. Because when I tried to use that, when I was scaling it, it completely scattered the whole thing. Wow, we have 2 minutes left to this call. My God. And so I'm going to change this from left and right to scale. And I also change the top and bottom to scale. Now, what's the magic that happens? The moment I adjust this, it automatically resizes with it is scaling according to the size of the parent frame. So this is just a brief summary on how frames, on how you can work with auto layouts and how you can work with resizing, and responsive designs. The last thing I was supposed to talk about is design systems, but like I knew we might not be able to talk about it, which is why I said, can we talk about it? So any questions? We have run out of time already. I want to keep the time. Does anybody have any questions? So to do a recap, we talked about frames and form factors, understanding frames. We talked about grids. We talked about sections, how it helps you to organize your workspace and helps you to be able to define things properly in your workspace. We talked about groups, frames, and the magic of auto layouts. We couldn't talk about design systems because we've run out of time. So any questions? Maybe even if it doesn't pertain to everything I've talked about, if you have like questions relating to design that you have been bothering your mind, you can ask your questions now. Maven, I don't know if you like at this point, what's to happen?
Yeah, I'm still here. I sent a message to you actually.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
Yeah, just to remind you what we talked about.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's
Um,
possible.
Yeah, okay, we can do that.
So I think we can just
So
center. I think we can just center around the things that you've taught now. Yeah, so
yeah,
you can have like maybe just something minimal, and then let them work with auto layout. Yeah. So
okay,
let me announce to them also. Yeah, because I've
all
been
right.
getting some messages from some members of the community that they want to learn UI UX better. How can they make money? How can they do this and all of that? So
Yeah.
Victory is he used to have a community, and then is bringing it back now for UX designers. Yeah, so I thought it would be nice if we have some of our members and anyone who is here also. If you wish to learn better, you can join his community. Right, so it's going to be like mastery class. You have like everything. You can see how technical how interesting he is explaining everything. Yeah, so it is a plus for you. But for you to be part of the community, yeah, he's going to work on something now. Yeah, he's going to show you something now, and then we want to see that thing as like an homework. It's going to be like an homework for you. Right, so you can rewatch this video after we've uploaded it on YouTube. You can rewatch the video and then do the assignment and send for approval. Then you have access to the community. If that's fine by you, if you know you really want to join the community and learn UI UX better. Okay, that's all from my end.
All right. Okay, so before we go into questions, um let's just do a practical section. Yemi, is it okay if I replicate this design and tell everybody to replicate it too? Because I don't want to spend
Yes,
so much.
yes. I think this one is just fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
So
let's do it like this. So
they
now,
just work with auto layouts and everything that you explained.
yeah, it's so this works with everything I've spoken about, auto
Yeah.
layouts and everything.
Yeah.
All right, and it might also be a couple other tips they can pick from it.
Okay.
So let's start working with this, with this screen. We want to replicate this screen that I worked on earlier in the week. I think it was on Monday. And so the frame size for this, right? The frame that was used for this is if you come here, you see it's the 14 or 15 Pro, 14 and 15 Pro. So I'll come here, select my frame. It's 14 and 15 Pro, right? Now, so because when I was working on this, I like to work with systems. I've created some sort of design systems around my work, right, which makes it easy for me to be able to do things very quickly. So, um, I would just I would do this. I would separate this from let me see that. Okay, I can actually see this grid sizing. So now the grid for this, the grid sizing for, so let's start with grid. The grid sizing for this mobile is it has a grid count of 4 and the margin is 16 and the gutter is 12, just like we explained during the first practical. So now the first thing to do is to create a grid. You click on the plus button, which brings out the grid, and I click on this icon here, which changes it from, and I come up to this point and switch from grid to columns. There is rows, which is the horizontal division, and columns, but we are working with column grids. Now I'll change the count to 4, right? I click enter. I want my margin, like I defined earlier, the margin is the distance between the edge of the screen to the next point of or to the beginning and the end of your grid system. So if I'll give a margin of 16 and give a cut of 12 because I don't want to make it 20, right? Now explaining how grids work. Now I think that I explain how margins work. Margin is the distance between the edge of your form factor of your screen to the edge of of to the beginning, to the starting point and the ending point of your grid system. So for example, if I decide to scale this, you can see that the column size is increasing, but two things are not changing, which is the gutter and the margin, right? If I want to increase the gutter, I'll come here to redefine it and change my gutter to maybe 20, and you can see the effect automatically here. The gutter is the space between each column. So I'll change it back to 12. And if I change my margin to maybe 32, we can see the distance on the edges. So, but let's go back to 16 because I like to work with this. You can get things like this from Play Store. I mean, let's say Play Store from what's it called? From the community. I'll share a link on the Telegram channel where you can get um design systems for Apple, and maybe I should be able to get out of Android also, right? So one of the things I'll do in my design is I want to make it fixed, and if you want to set an item to be fixed, so I want you to observe something
Excuse
that
me,
I've
please,
done.
Victory. Sorry. I think I need
Yeah.
to log off now because my battery is down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I should
All right.
end, it means the meeting will be ending. Yeah. So you can start a live video from your end.
Okay. Or is it not possible for you to switch from your laptop to your phone? So if you switch to your phone, you might be able to continue.
Okay. Let me see that. Let me see if that's
Yeah. Just open Telegram on
possible.
your phone and migrate the call to your
Okay.
Telegram allows that.
All right. Okay. 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 I'm with you guys now.
Is that successful? Have you been able to?
Yeah. Yeah. Successful. Successful.
All right, great. So, like I explained earlier, I was talking about um, constraints in your design. So, for example, if you look at this status bar, if I scroll down to the constraint, I see that my constraint is set to top, and the constraint for this state for the home icon is set to bottom. Now, what that means is, as I adjust this, you can see the home icon. Okay, if I replicate this design and tell everybody to replicate it too, because I don't want to spend so much time.
Yes. 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 I think this one is just fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's do it like this. So
So
now,
they just work with auto layouts and everything that you
yeah,
explained.
it's so this works with everything I've spoken about, auto layouts and everything.
Yeah.
All right, and
Yeah.
there might also be a couple other tips they can pick from it. So
Okay.
let's start working with this, with this screen. We want to replicate this screen that I worked on earlier in the week. I think it was on Monday. And so the frame size for this, right? The frame that was used for this is if you come here, you see it's the 14 or 15 Pro, 14 and 15 Pro. So I'll come here, select my frame. It's 14 and 15 Pro, right? Now, so because when I was working on this, I like to work with systems. I've created some sort of design systems around my work, right, which makes it easy for me to be able to do things very quickly. So, um, I would just I would do this. I would separate this from. Um, Let me see if I can actually see this grid sizing. So now the grid for this, the grid sizing for, so let's start with grid. The grid sizing for this mobile is it has a grid count of 4, and the margin is 16, and the gutter is 12, just like we explained during the first practical. So now the first thing to do is to create a grid. You click on the plus button, which brings out the grid, and I click on this icon here, which changes it from, and I come up to this point and switch from grid to columns. There is rows, which is the horizontal division, and columns, but we are working with column grids. Now I'll change the count to 4, right? I click enter. I want my margin, like I defined earlier. The margin is the distance between the edge of the screen to the next point of or to the beginning and the end of your grid system. So if I'll give it a margin of 16 and give it a gutter of 12 because I don't want to make it 20, right? Now explaining how grids work. Now I told you that I explained how margins work. Margin is the distance between the edge of your form factor of your screen to the edge of your to the beginning, to the starting point and the ending point of your grid system. So for example, if I decide to scale this, you can see that the column size is increasing, but two things are not changing, which is the gutter and the margin, right? If I want to increase the gutter, I'll come here to redefine it and change my gutter to maybe 20, and you can see the effect automatically here. The gutter is the space between each column, so I'll change it back to 12, and if I change my margin to maybe 32, we can see the distance on the edges. So but let's go back to 16 because I like to work with this. You can get things like this from Play Store. I mean, did I say Play Store? From what's it called? From the community. I'll share a link on the Telegram channel where you can get um, design systems for Apple, and maybe I should be able to get out of Android also, right? So one of the things I'll do in my design is I want to make it fixed, and if you want to set an item to be fixed, so I want you to observe something that I've done here.
Excuse me, Victory.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think I need to log off now because my battery is down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
So if I should end, it means the meeting will be ending. Yeah. So you can start a live video from your end.
Okay. Or is it not possible for you to switch from your laptop to your phone? So if you switch to your phone, you might be able to continue.
Okay. Let me see that.
Yeah.
Let me
Just
see
open
if
Telegram
that's
on your phone and migrate the call to your Telegram. Allows that.
okay. Okay.
Is that successful? Have you been able to migrate?
Yeah. Successful.
All right. Great. So like I explained earlier, I was talking about um, constraints in your design. So for example, if you look at this status bar, if I scroll down to the constraint, I can see that my constraint is set to top, and the constraint for this state for the home icon is set to bottom. Now what that means is, as I adjust this, you can see the home icon continues to follow the height and width of my design. So that's the essence of using constraints. It's always good to make sure your constraints are well set. Like I said, constraints is very important because even in life we need constraints. So I set the constraint for this to bottom, the constraint for this to top, right? And it's also center horizontally, top vertically, and this is centered horizontally and bottom vertically, right? Now the first thing I want to do is to create this section, right? And I would start by, so let me first detach this from because I was working with if you can see, this is what's it called again, variables. I defined variables. I was working with variables, yeah. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so I want to ask you, I think the way I'm recording this thing from my end, it's not recording the normal way, like I'm recording with my laptop, but I think it's okay, no problem. All right, let me just continue. So so okay, so I want to first detach this from the variables that were being used. Right, so I'll try to detach all this from the variables. Let me see how I can break it. Okay, it's not breaking ball. All right, but let me start with this. So this is I don't even know the height now, but just let me try to define this. Okay, good. So I have this and the height is 34. Okay, so I'll do the same thing here. And I said, so I'm going to 300, right? And this is 28 and 34, all right, which is also set here. I don't know if everybody can do stuff like this, but on a Mac you can bring out different currency values by just holding Control Command Space Bar, and it brings out a lot of icons for you, and you can create add your currency from there. So I'll hold Option, click and drag to duplicate, and I'll tag this wallet balance, right? And I'll come here to check. It has 14 and 20. It has, so this is font size 14 and the line height is 20, and I'll change from semi bold to regular, right? And I think for this, or let me just pick the entire frame, it has a spacing of 8. So I'll do this, I'll create an auto layout and change the spacing from 13 because it's automatically 13 here to 8. Then this has a spacing, it has a padding, horizontal padding of 24 and vertical padding of 32. So I'll give it 24 and 32, right? It's still going to make sense eventually. I'll click enter, which is going to automatically select the two elements here and set both of them to fill the container, so that the moment I start to drag to the other extreme end of my grid, it automatically resizes. So, and this has a corner radius of 16, so I will give it a corner radius of 16. And also the color, what's the color? I'll detach it from the system and give this color, give it a fill color. It didn't have a fill color before, so I'll add a fill color to it. Then also for this text is white, FFF white, and I think this is a different shade, which I'm just going to copy, and I'll come here and paste this and call this, right? So I have this already. So this is already set. I want to make sure the distance from the top, okay, that's 36, this has, okay, 30, so I'll just move it up a bit, and good. So if you notice, there's this pattern inside the design. The way I'm not going to do it in the replication because I know not everybody is going to have that access to that pattern. So but what I did is I have a vector, right? So let me just copy the vector and paste it here. So this is the vector. It's a standalone vector, right? So this is it. The moment I take it, I'll take it, Control X, and paste it inside of this. Automatically you can see that the thing resizes because of the auto layout. For me to avoid this, there is something called absolute positioning. If you are coding, if you are building websites, you hear of things called absolute positioning. So if I set it to absolute position, it means I can now position it anywhere I like within the frame, and I'll send it to the back by using the back square bracket, and I'll clip content so that none of it comes out. So I don't know if you can see, I've just hidden the grid for you to see what it look like. So I'm going to take this out because I'm not expecting everyone to be able to get there. But if you can do that, if you can get nice patterns that is not going to be obtrusive to your design, why not? You can do it. So next I want to do is to create this button, and I want to recreate these buttons. I created them, like I already created like a system for everything. So but I'm not going to recreate the old design system. I'll just recreate the exact buttons. So this first button is font wallet, right? And there's something interesting I normally do when dealing with UI. So what's the size of this? This is 14 and 20, so I'll give this line height of 20. Yeah. So there's something interesting I do to get icons, because one of the things, the primary heuristics of design is consistency in your design. So to ensure that there's consistency in my design, I try, it's always good as a designer to make use of just one icon pack. It's always good to make use of one icon pack. It helps you to be consistent. And the icon pack I use very often is called Font Awesome. Font Awesome is a font used by programmers when they are building, when they are doing their development. But now we can also use Font Awesome in Figma. So I'll come here and type wallet here, right? Or okay, the icon I use there is a plus button, but let me just show you how Font Awesome works. I'll come here and I've installed the Font Awesome on my laptop. If I just come here and switch to Font Awesome, you can see that it automatically changes to an icon. So if I change this, I want to use the circle, but I'll just type cycle, or no, it's going to be plus dash cycle. Can you see it? I've automatically created this. I'll change it from regular to solid so that I can have the colors I want. So now I'm going to bring it close to each other and select both of them. Hold shift, select both, and control, I mean shift A. Shift A is the shortcut for creating auto layouts, right? Just in case you don't know, I've been doing auto layout without explaining. Especially if you want to, like, if I select this object alone and I want to create an auto layout around this, you cannot find it on your right hand panel. So the way to create an auto layout around one single item is to use shift A. But if I select both items, I can easily see auto layouts. Yeah, the auto layout button appears. I'll just click on auto layouts. I've created an auto layout. So for this, it has a spacing of 8, left padding, left and right padding 20, vertical padding 12. So I'll do the same thing. Spacing of 8. So if you just watch what happens when I change the spacing to 8, spacing of 8, it comes closer. And this is left and right 20, and top bottom is 12. And there I have this button. It has a radius of what's the radius? 8. The corner radius is 8, so I'll do that. And I'm just going to give it a background color of this. I'll click enter and select color white. So that button is done. Right, this is fund wallet. Now I'm going to do something which is going to be very interesting. I would do something. So because of the system I created, it means that there's a lot of space between these two buttons, and that's because I wanted the icon to remain flexed to the left. Now watch this. If I adjust the size of this, you can see that the buttons are not changing. So what I'll do is I'll set this to fill container such that, and set this to center text, center alignment. Then the moment I start adjusting, you can see it automatically changes, right? So I'll do the same thing for send money. I'll duplicate, just hold shift and option, I think that's alt on Windows. Then I would, right? So because this has been set to fixed, that's why it's resizing. If I double click on the edge here, it changes to org, and this changes to org also, right? So but I'll change this to fill, so that is going to fill the container. And for this icon, I think this is paper plane. Okay, I think now stop plane. What is this icon now? I don't know what the icon name is, but I'm going to type it here. No. Okay, so I'll change this to, I want to see the name. Paper plane top. Okay, that's the name. So it's called paper. So if you're working with font awesome, you don't need to know all these offhand. You can always check the documentation on font awesome websites, because that's what I did when I was working on this. Now let's do something very interesting. I've set this to, I'm going to set this to fixed. I also set this to fixed also. This is also fixed. I've said I want to set the text inside, and mind you, when you're working with auto layout, for you to quickly, if you notice I'm selecting text very easily, the way I do that is to hold command or control on Windows and click on the text. It helps you to select precisely the element you want to select without having to double click twice. So this is set to fill, and this is also set to fill. So what I'll do is I'll create an auto layout here. Let me turn on my grid again so that I can see what's going on. I would auto layout it, because my gutter is usually 12, so I want to make sure it doesn't exceed 12. Then I'll pick the entire auto layout and drag it to the extreme end, click on the items inside and set it to fill container. Automatically it takes that direction. So mind you, if you notice that this the color of this column grid system is white. If you want to change the color of your column, in case you don't like it, you can come here to change the color, like I can do here right away, and change the color to something that's, is less distracting for me, right? Or I can easily take it back to red, but I prefer to use this. Now the next thing I want to design is the transaction history, right? Now let's break down this transaction history. if you look at this transaction history, this is an auto layout frame. An auto layout is whenever you see this three, this sort of like hamburger, icon on your layers, it illustrates or represents it represents your auto layout. So this is an auto layout. If I click on it to enter, it shows that there are two sections of auto layout. This is one section that contains the transaction history, and another. When I click on this, it takes me deeper. I see the transaction history and this button here. And when I click on this and I click enter, I see the different auto layout that has been created. Now when I click on this again, it's another set of auto layouts. So it's just different levels of auto layouts. And I click on this, it shows me the I don't know if I'm making any sense. So it's just different levels of auto layouts, right? So let's make it make sense. Now first thing I'll do is to come here and create my type the text transaction history, right? I'll change the font to, what's the name of the font we are using? Open source sans, right? And I'll change this from black to medium, because I think this is medium. Yeah, it's medium. So what's this font size for this? This is 18 and height of 26, so I'll give it font size 18 and the height is 26, line height is 26. So transaction history is done. I will just copy the color so that it's just, this is not very necessary because you can give it any colors when you are working on it on your own end, because you might not have access to these design files. So I'll also create the button here, view all. What's the size for this? This is 12 and 17, font size 12, line height 17, and I'll give it this color so that it's quite similar. Now the first thing I'll do is to create an auto layout. Shift A. I've created the auto layout. Now your auto layout can take different alignment points. You can set it to top, or you can set it to the middle, or you can set it to bottom. So if you notice how it changes, right? This is bottom, this is center, and this is top. And the spacing between the two, Figma is very intelligent in that it gave it an auto spacing, but I can actually set a definite spacing. I can say I want it to just be 12, right? So which brings it together. But because I want them to scale to the extreme ends, in web design, when you're building websites, is it's called space between, right? That's the CSS property. So I'm going to set this to to auto, which is space between, and align it to center, right? So that's one. So that helps you to explain how this works, just in case anyone gets confused. So I would also flex this to the extreme end, though I'm still going to make all those adjustments. Now the next thing is to start by designing each of all these transaction parameters. So for example, wallet font is font size 14 and 20. So I'll just click on this. Now the name of this is wallet, name of this transaction is wallet font. I'll duplicate it, maybe come down here and give it the date. The date it happened was June 16th and happened by 3:45, or let me give it 3:15 p.m. 45 p.m. right? I'll change this from, oh, it's automatically taking the, so I need to detach this and this. So I'm going to change this from medium to regular, and the font size for this is, it's giving font size of 12, so I'll change this to 12 right? And the height shouldn't be more than 16 to 17, so I'll give it 17. So that is set. I'll give this a lighter shade of black so that it's it looks different. So let me just give it 78, right? And I think the spacing in between is 0%, so we are good to go. So let's check out this auto layout. It has a spacing of 3, so I'll do that for this. Create an auto layout, Shift A, and give it spacing of 3, right? We are going somewhere. Now this text is I don't know what's the size of this now. Okay, so now I can't detect this. I've scattered a couple of things here, but let me see this I can get. Okay, since I might not be able to get this side because it's not giving me access to this, but I'll just create a text for you and I'll call this 240,000 naira. Let me add the currency to the front. Double click and add my naira, my precious pitiable naira. I don't know why, for weird reasons, it's not adding, but I'll just come here and copy from here. Command Shift V, so that it matches the exact size. So I'll give this let me give this 20, so that it's okay. 20 is too big. Let me make it 16. And can I just detach all this nonsense? 20. Okay, this is okay. I think this is, I don't know the line height, but this should be like 24 because it's 16, right? All these have been predefined in my design system. Now you see these icons that is going up and down. I'm going to create it here also. So I'll come here, click text, and just type arrow. Okay, so first of all, it's automatically selecting what I've done last, so I don't want that to happen. So I'll come here and type, and this too is also, you know what, I need to detach all this. So I think this is detached. So if I come here and I type arrow up right and change the font to Font Awesome 6 Pro, so it goes, and I want to change it to from regular to solid. This has a size of like 14, so I'll give this size 14 and set it to auto. That's for the line height. So if you check the size, you can see that the size is 11 by 14. Like, that's the size of this icon. So I'll create an auto layout around it by holding by typing Shift A. You can see it automatically creates a new frame here. So I'll just rename this to icon. Right now I want to set specific width for this. I think for this we set it to be specifically 27 or 28. So I want to define this to be 28 pixels. So it's fixed for 28, and also set the height to be 28 also, right? Then of course the auto layout is aligned to the center, right? I'm going to just give this a little radius of, I think, 2, and pick a color here and change this color also to this dark green. So you already have this icon already set, and I think this can go to 4. Now let's make sense of the whole thing together, and I think from here to here, or let me say from here, everything is 16. All right, so I'll do this, or in fact let me just pick everything together. Now watch what I'm going to do. I hope I'm making any sense. Please, if you are lost, just let me know. I'll select all this together and Shift A to create an auto layout, right? It's auto layout. Don't quick figure out frames, you make them. Okay, I got it. Why are you telling me this? Next time try it, Control Shift A. Wow, okay, this is one of the new features, Figma AI. So let me try it. Sorry, config is like Figma's config is going on, so let me try it. Control Shift A. Same thing. Okay, wow, but it aligned everything well for me. So now it set it to auto. I don't want it to be auto, I want it to be 16, right? That is one. Then secondly, I want this to, wow, Figma is doing something interesting. I don't know what has happened here, but this is very interesting. Wow. Okay, this is Figma AI in action. All right, so this is, I want to try it again to be very sure that it wasn't an error. Control Shift A. Wow. Okay, now what Figma did for me was that it automatically created like different levels of auto layouts for me, auto layout this and auto layout this, and which is really amazing, honestly, really amazing. So you can try that out on your end. This has a left and right padding of 8, top and bottom 16, and gap 16. So I'll do that. Let's just leave this at auto, since Figma feels it's best for it to be auto. and I'll call this 16. Now I'm going to take this and scale this to the end, and also scale this to the end. Now if you notice that there is this divider line, instead of creating divider lines or having to do those manually draw something, I do something to create divider lines. I'll create a stroke and change my stroke to just bottom alone, and change the let me make it so much lighter. Or what color is this? I want to make it the same color, so I'll just use the stroke to have the same color, the stroke, so which is good. Now I'll do the same thing for the other transactions. I'm just going to duplicate it and auto layout it. Then I'm just going to double click on one and duplicate a couple of times, right? So this is done. So I want to change this to arrow bottom left. What's going on? Oh, sorry, it's arrow down left, rather. Arrow down, yes, left. So which is that? I would change the color to this. I'll select this color. So when you are replicating the design, it's not compulsory to use my exact colors. You can make use of your own colors, which is going to make your work like pretty neat. Now when Figma was doing this auto layout for me, it decided to, so I'm going to change this to 30 so that it's like well aligned, and yeah, and this should, yeah, so this auto layout thing has this new AI auto layout is messing a couple of things up for me, but no problem. Got pass Figma, and I'll set this to org content so that it's going to find itself in the center. I'll just copy this and paste it here, and also change the color to this, right? And there's also another way you can copy and paste. I'll just select this, copy it, and Command Shift R to replace it completely, right? So I don't like the spacing that Figma added to this for me. It is kind of too much compared to this, so but I think it's okay this way, but I can reduce this to, let me take it to 20. Yeah, I think it's better at 20. Or what do you guys think? Yeah, it's better at 20. 20. Take this to 20. Well, this is really nice. Some of these new Figma features which has just been implemented tonight. Change this to 20. Yeah. So now I've created all this. Now I'm going to and one of the things I want to do is that, because this is an auto layout for the transactions, I want to make sure everything is filling this auto layout. Now I'm going to take this and this, but let me make sure that the height is where I want it to be. Let me just, I think this has a height of 12, so this distance from here to here should be like 12. Select both, and let me turn on my grid system again so that I can see what is going on. I'm going to move this to the left and right, so I'm going to select this and auto layout both of them. So we've created an auto layout. One of the things I want to do is that this has 16 left and right, 20 at the top and 12 at the bottom, and spacing of 12. So this is going to be 16 left and right. Can you see the way it scales automatically? Then for the top and bottom, this has a top 20 and a bottom of 12. So I'll do that here. I'll just type 20, 12, and it automatically creates. So for this last one, I don't want to see this, so I'll just change this to 0 so that I don't see that line under the final one. Now we are getting to the final part. Okay, and mind you, let me select all this. So let me select all the text that looks, so there's something interesting with Figma. I'll select all matching layers. I don't know why it's not selecting it for weird reasons, but I want to make sure they have the same like font, like the same color. So I'll just change this to 3D, 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 and
all of this. I'll change this to maybe 82, 82, 82, which is okay. And let me select all these ones too and change this to 3D, 3D, 3D. Good. So that's that. And or let me just make this. Yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to disturb it. Now let's work on this navigation bar. Let's work on this nav bar. Now for us to work on this nav bar, doing this nav bar is quite interesting. The first thing I want to do is to create my home icons. So I create icon, I call this home, right? This one is compass. The next one is wallet. Now also write wallet here again, right? And the final one is user. Now let me begin to change all this to icons. Font awesome. I'll change this to solid. So let me just select all the ones I want to change. Select them at once. Font awesome 6 Pro and change it to solid. So we have these icons already set. What is the size for these icons? They are all set to 20, and I'll do that for here. 20. And the line height is what again? The line height is auto. So I'll select all this and change this line height to auto. Just type auto into that space bucket. Now I'm going to create an auto layout between. So let me check what this one is. So each of the auto layout, they have a spacing of 8 and 16 and 10 padding. So I'll do that here. This is 8, so it's going to be 16 and 10. Right, we are going somewhere. Do the same thing here. 16 and 10. Now do the same thing for this. It's going to be 8, 16 and 10. Now I've done that. And finally for this, I'll give it an auto layout 8, 16 and 10. Right, so we've defined all this. Now the next thing I want to do is each of these elements they all have a corner radius of 24, right? So I'm going to select all 4 of them and give them a corner radius of 24, right? I'll select each of all these icons, the ones that are standing alone. And what is going on? Okay, so I'm not liking these things that Figma is doing tonight. Figma is automatically creating some jargons for me, which I do not appreciate from them. So Figma, please take time. So I would select all this and give it the same color, right? We've already set the radius, and I'll take these ones inside there and give it this color here, and select the entire thing and give it this color. Like, so what I'm doing is I'm setting a fill color. Sorry, I'm using a lot of shortcuts, which is wrong. I'm supposed to explain what I'm doing, but it is what it is. So I'll just select all 3 and use my eye picker tool and select this. I'm very sorry if I'm not explaining in details what I'm doing. So I'm going to select all this. I'm running against time. Now, why is this way? I need to find out what's going on. So this is 16. Let me find out. It's in 26. Okay, I think I know what happened now. Alright, so because of this, I'm just going to leave it this way, and I'll change this to, I think this has a height of 44, so I'll just change the rest of them to have a fixed height of 44 and make sure all of them scales to the center. Now I'm going to select all this and auto layout them. Now it has, or let me see what Figma Smart Auto Layout does to me. Okay, so they have an automatic spacing of 24, and now for this we have top and bottom, left and right 16. So I'll do the same thing here. 16 here, 16 here. Right, we are beginning to get somewhere.
Now I'm going to do the final part and the interesting part, which is scaling this to the extreme end of the screen, right? And switching from this to auto, which is called the space between. So we have just replicated this screen. And now for our transaction history, if you notice that there's a background color to it, I think that's a corner radius of 16, so I'll give it a 16 corner radius and change the color to something like this, so that it's easy for us to differentiate between, you know, each of the different elements. And I think distance from here to here is 28, so let's just make sure there's that consistency. So that's pretty much it. We've just successfully replicated this design, right? There are some shadows on each of these buttons. I'm not going to go into that details. We can be discussing all those in subsequent classes, but for now, this is how we're able to replicate this design. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions for me? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? I think I can stop this one here.
Very smart to me, there is in I live. It's more than the purpose. Who I'm meant to be, places I should be. It's not even better.